Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. In this video, I'm continuing my analysis into Nietzsche's Will to Power. Specifically, I'll be looking at note 8.4 in my notes, and in Nietzsche's notes, I'll be covering notes 192 to 209. With that, let's begin. So this is Will to Power. And this is section 8.4. And this covers notes 192 through 209. Alright, so the first thing to discuss is the following. According to Nietzsche, we must identify an individual, by his deeds, his abilities. And we saw this in the last section of the lecture. We saw that there was emphasis shifted within the Christian moral ethic from actual works, what's done, to the disposition. So that more emphasis was placed on the disposition, how an individual looked to perform, rather than the individual's performance. Nietzsche, he wholeheartedly rejects sort of this fake it till you make it type mentality, right? This disposition takes primacy over actual work. So, according to Nietzsche, we must identify one by his deeds, his ability, his work. Here's a quote from note 192. Quote, "One must practice deeds, not the strengthening of one's value feelings," right? Not the strengthening of one's value feelings. One must first have some ability. Then he goes on, within Christian works, the value of existence resides in single, highly tensed conditions of inactivity. Right? So, just to read that again and actually put it in a little bit of context, because that might seem a little opaque, and try and make a little bit more sense before I begin the analysis. 192. Okay. The very top of 192, it says faith or works, right? But that works, the habit of certain works, should engender a certain evaluation and finally a certain disposition, as I just said, is as natural as it is unnatural that mere evaluation should produce works. One must practice deeds, which is the quote that I just read, not the strengthening of one's value feelings. One must first have some ability, right? So the point is the following. Within Christian works, right? So if we're talking about an individual, right, and we're attempting to make an assessment of both people, and this individual actually practices work, and this individual merely has a disposition, right? This person works, this person has the disposition of having worked. There are going to be consequences, right, products of work, and we'll talk about that in a second. The question becomes, what is the product of a disposition? We know what the product of work is. For example, the product of my work is 20 plus hours of a Nietzsche lecture on YouTube, right? The product of having the disposition of working, well, there really isn't anything to it, right? There isn't anything to it. Specifically, Nietzsche says the product, he doesn't say this explicitly, but you have to read between the lines. He says in note 192, within Christian works, the value of existence resides in single, highly tensed conditions of inactivity. So what you get from a disposition and what you get from work is different. In sort of a capitalist, and I'm not going to shift the discourse into sort of capitalism or economics, but the idea is from your work you get a product. From the disposition, what you get is inactivity. You don't get anything. You get the appearance of working, right? So you can either have the appearance of working or you can actually work. And what I think is very interesting, and I'm about to develop this point pretty substantially in the next few sections, this all comes out of Nietzsche, it has to do with the cohabitation culturally, socially, between individuals who are actually working, individuals who are actually striving for excellence, individuals who are actually producing, and actually you could just say producing in a general sense instead of product. Individuals who are actually producing, and those who are not. And I've actually done a lecture on this before. It's called the problem of free writing, and we're going to address the problem of free writing right now. So this lecture it's going to start off a little shallow, but then we'll as usual jump into the abyss. Okay, so it's very important to recognize, as he says, and this is a direct quote: within Christian works, the value of existence resides in single, highly tense conditions of inactivity. So inactivity, where's my blue? There we go. Inactivity becomes valuable, right? Having this disposition creates a state of inactivity, and that becomes valuable. Inactivity itself becomes valuable, rather than actually working and proving and demonstrating your ability. We'll see how this develops socioculturally in a second. So for me, I think that's a good way to start the discourse. We started off a little deep in this segment, but you guys have been watching me for a while, so some lectures will be a little deeper than others. Now, if we look at the top of page 33, when we talk about a disposition, right? When we talk about a disposition, we see that a disposition will lead to value, right? But this is incorrect. Nietzsche doesn't believe that it is fair that disposition leads to value, right? Nietzsche wants to reject this, right? Nietzsche wants to reject this. Right? Nietzsche wants to reject the argument that disposition leads to value. If you think about the separation between the two individuals, an individual who works and his or her works contribute to the creation of more product, produces value within the world, rather than an individual who has the disposition of working, who talks the talk, walks the walk, but doesn't practice, quote unquote, what he or she preaches, then the act of performance is the only thing of value, and that is an act of inactivity compared to an individual who's actually working, right? So that is, value is attributed through disposition, and I just explained what that means, right? Value is attributed through disposition, specifically in the process of inactivity, right? It looks hopefully tame, but the concept is actually pretty deep, right? So value is attained through disposition. Value is attained through disposition in the process of inactivity. Okay, so value is attributed through disposition. That is, without work or through inactivity. Inactivity, attribution of value. Inactivity attributes, I should put, value. And that's what that means. Okay. So there's a potential problem here, right? If we have varying conceptions of value, and you should see that we have varying conceptions of value, the world values the product of work. There's value, hopefully, I can't make that assessment, but I hope that there's value in what I'm doing now, right? My lecture series isn't about me necessarily parading my own ideas. Every now and then I'll sprinkle in some of my own sort of ghetto philosophy, the things that I'm personally interested in. But mostly my videos are supplements to primary text, right? So these videos are like secondary accounts of primary text. And I know that people are going to be reading these primary texts, and they'll need a supplement. Traditionally, the supplements would be secondary text, other texts that you have to read. And my contribution, hopefully what I'm producing from my work, is a new form of supplement. That's all this really is. We don't have to get heady about what it is that I'm trying to do. I mean, I have ulterior motives in the background, but I mean, generally speaking, the idea behind these video lectures is to provide a supplement to primary text, so that when you read Nietzsche, you have a great supplement to understand him. Okay, so what we recognize then is the correct relationship between work, the product, disposition, value,